We have sad news to report out of the film industry tonight. Actress Hayden Panettiere has died at the age of 36, her father confirming her passing just a short time ago. Panettiere was known for her roles in the hit shows Heroes and Nashville.
He was 4 days away from turning 37 when the world lost her. On August 16, 2026, actress Hayden Panettiere was found unresponsive inside an apartment in Greenville, South Carolina, and pronounced dead that same afternoon. Within hours, her father released a short, aching statement calling her an incredible light and a force of nature, words that would end up printed under nearly every headline written about her that week. But behind that one sentence is a much longer story. A fortune built from childhood stardom, a daughter growing up thousands of miles away, a memoir that became a bestseller just months before her death, and a family that has now been forced to bury 2 children in the space of 3 years. This is the story of what Hayden Panettiere leaves behind. The call came into Greenville police just before 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday. Officers and paramedics arrived at an apartment complex where Panettiere had reportedly been staying temporarily and found her unresponsive in cardiac arrest. Emergency crews attempted resuscitation on scene, but it was too late. She was pronounced dead a short time later. Within the hour, her representative confirmed the news to reporters, and by that evening it had reached every major outlet in the country. What makes the story harder to sit with is the timing. Just days earlier, Dispatch Communications had apparently referenced a possible overdose, though authorities were careful to note that this detail came from an early radio transmission, not a confirmed medical finding. An autopsy was performed the following day, and the coroner's office reported that no signs of trauma were found that would explain her death. Investigators stated publicly that there was nothing to suggest foul play. Still, as of this recording, her official cause and manner of death had not been finalized, with the coroner's office saying that additional toxicology studies were still pending. It's a frustrating kind of limbo for her fans, and probably an even harder one for the people who loved her, because a name and a headline arrived long before any real answers did. Reports also indicated that Panettiere had flown from Los Angeles to South Carolina the day before her death, reportedly with her on-again, off-again boyfriend, actor Brian Hickerson. That detail matters, and we'll come back to exactly why a little later in this video, because their relationship carries a history that stretches back years and involves far more than just a romance. What's striking, looking back at reporting from years earlier, is that South Carolina isn't an incidental backdrop to this story. Back in 2018, not long after Panettiere and Hickerson first started seeing each other, police were called out to a home in that same state belonging to Hickerson's father, following what was described at the time as a drunken altercation between the 2 men. Panettiere was reportedly the one who opened the door for the responding officers that night. It's a strange, quiet detail that doesn't get much attention in the current wave of coverage, but it connects directly to the place where the final chapter of her life unfolded years later. Whether it means anything at all is impossible to say, but for people who followed the couple's history closely, it adds an unsettling layer to an already painful story. For now, though, it's worth sitting with just how fast the tributes started pouring in once the news broke. Viola Davis, who acted opposite Panettiere in a film years earlier, posted a message describing her as someone who had risen from hardship like a phoenix, and said she wished the world had gotten more time with her. Actors from Heroes, from Nashville, from Bring It On all posted their own goodbyes that same night. A number of people who had worked alongside her on set, crew members rather than fellow cast members, brought up a detail that kept resurfacing in tribute after tribute, that she made a habit of learning the names of everyone around her, not just the stars, but the camera operators, the background actors, the people whose names rarely end up in the credits. It's a small thing, but it's the kind of detail that tells you more about a person than any award ever could. To really understand why her death hit so many different corners of pop culture at once, from horror movie fans to soap opera devotees to a generation raised on superhero television, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. Long before Claire Bennett or Juliette Barnes existed, there was a baby being booked for her first commercial before she could even crawl. Hayden Leslie Panettiere was born on August 21, 1989, in Palisades, New York. Her mother, Leslie Vogel, had worked as a soap actress herself before shifting into managing her daughter's early career, and her father, Alan "Skip" Panettiere, worked as a fire captain. Hayden's first commercial came at 11 months old, and by the time she was 4, she had already landed a recurring role on the daytime soap opera One Life to Live. 2 years later, she moved over to Guiding Light, where her character was written with a leukemia storyline, so affecting that the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society gave the young actress a special honor for it. It's a detail that rarely comes up in modern coverage of her career, but it says something about how early audiences first connected with her, long before most of us even knew her name. Through the rest of her childhood, she kept working steadily. She voiced Princess that in Pixar's A Bug's Life, appeared opposite Denzel Washington in Remember the Titans, and spent her young teenage years bouncing between family-friendly films like Ice Princess and Raising Helen. None of that fully prepared audiences for what happened in 2006, when a 15-year-old cheerleader with the power to heal from any wound turned her into a household name almost overnight. Claire Bennett, her character on NBC's Heroes, kept her on primetime television for 4 seasons. The healing cheerleader storyline became so central to the marketing of the show that Panettiere's face ended up on more merchandise than any other cast members, including the actors who played the show's actual title characters. When Heroes wrapped in 2010, she didn't slow down. She landed the role of Juliette Barnes, a ruthless but talented country star on the musical drama Nashville, earning 2 Golden Globe nominations across a run that lasted 6 seasons and turned her into one of the most recognizable faces associated with Music City. Longtime fans of the show have speculated for years that the character was loosely modeled on real country artists of the era, something Panettiere pushed back on directly more than once, insisting Juliette Barnes wasn't based on any single performer. She later stepped into the horror genre, playing Kirby Reed in Scream 4 and reprising the role years later in Scream 6. She lent her voice to Kairi across the Kingdom Hearts video game franchise, introducing her to a generation of fans who had never watched a single episode of Heroes, and voiced Kate in the animated film Alpha and Omega. Her final credited role came earlier this year in a direct-to-video thriller, a quiet ending to a career that stretched across more than 3 decades and touched nearly every corner of the entertainment industry. From daytime soap operas to network prestige dramas to horror franchises to animated video games. What's easy to forget looking back at a filmography this long is just how young she was for almost every one of those milestones. She was still a child when she took on a leukemia storyline that earned recognition from a national health organization. She was a young teenager juggling multiple film sets a year, while most kids her age were worrying about middle school. And she was 15 when Heroes turned her into a name recognized well outside the entertainment industry, the kind of overnight fame that very few people, at any age, are actually prepared to handle. Looking back at interviews from that period, there's a noticeable shift in how she talked about her own career once she reached adulthood. Less about the excitement of landing new roles, and more about trying to figure out who she was underneath all of it. Her formal education ended early. Private tutors took over starting in 9th grade, a common arrangement for young performers, but one that meant she missed out on a lot of the traditional milestones her peers experienced. She said in past interviews that she once considered stepping away from acting to pursue higher education, but the demands of Heroes made that plan impossible. Her family has Italian roots along with some English and German ancestry, something she referenced occasionally when asked about her surname, which translates roughly to Baker in Italian and is commonly mispronounced by fans who never quite land on the right rhythm. There's a whole other side to Panettiere that rarely makes it into the tribute coverage, one that had nothing to do with acting at all, and it says a lot about who she was before fame ever settled into a routine. Reports gathered after her death placed her net worth anywhere between roughly $6 million and $15 million. A wide enough range to tell you something about how unreliable celebrity wealth estimates really are once you move past a single headline salary figure. Some outlets lean toward the lower end of that range, citing widely used celebrity wealth trackers, while others cited figures closer to 12 or 15 million based on cumulative earnings across her career. The truth is probably somewhere in between, and likely won't be fully clear until estate filings, if any become public, settle the question for good. A financial breakdown published earlier this year traced most of that fortune back to Nashville, where she reportedly earned around $75,000 per episode across the show's more than 100